See this, am I right? You know? So here's to Baron Shaughnessy, the founder, the namesake of this neighborhood. You know, things were worse in many ways 100 years ago, but at least they called the barons barons. They wore it, right? He was a real baron who became a land baron and, you know, along with the Canadian and the local authorities, was given this huge piece of stolen Indigenous territory to create a neighborhood explicitly for the rich and only for the rich. And not just only for the rich, only for the whites, only for the homeowners. They had a strict ban on renters in this neighborhood, a strict ban on people of color living here. They were allowed to come and be the help. They were allowed to work. They would be blamed when a nursemaid was murdered. They would be scapegoated. And they would come to work in fear because the headquarters of the KKK at one time was in a mansion in this neighborhood. So everything that Baron Shaughnessy and the original wealthy elite inhabitants of this neighborhood stood for and represented, every improvement we've made in the last 100 years has had to be fought for by movements like this movement here today and all of the movements that all of you here are part of. The residents of Shaughnessy, the elite of the day, were against the rights of women to vote. They were against the right of Native people to vote and have basic human dignity and the right to their language and their children's education. They were for excluding Chinese people from the neighborhood and then ultimately also from the country, and viciously scapegoated all people of color. So we fought and won movements against racism. We fought and won movements for women's rights. And unfortunately, we still have to fight and win the right to the city. And that's what we're doing here today. And in this campaign with our candidate, Jean Swanson, and all of our candidates, we're going to keep fighting the right to the city. And we're going to keep making the old Baron spin in his grave. On that note, I should introduce a couple of the other candidates who are not responsible for my comments about the Baron, and may he rest in peace, really. It's about a system, it's not about individuals. But there are some spectacular other candidates here that Anne and Jean and folks hadn't mentioned yet. We hadn't noticed them. So Barb Parrott is running for a Cope School Board nomination. Fantastic labor activist, teachers activist, Barb Parrott. And forgive me, I might miss you, but the other one I saw is John Irwin running for Park Board with Cope. And it's an unusual situation for me to be a candidate. Maybe that's obvious to some of you. For 20 years I've been an activist, an independent media editor and writer and rabble-rouser, but it doesn't feel too weird to be a candidate with this campaign because, you know, Jean Swanson really embodies a very, very different type of politician, and that's why we love her. And in addition to getting Jean elected, which is, okay, it's goal number one. It's goal number one to finish what we started last year in the by-election and get Jean on city council for 4 years. Right? But in addition, we don't want to just get her on council and not give her the capacity to push through the changes we need in the city we need. So this campaign is designed to get people into office, but at the same time to build the social movements in this city, to build the tenants union, to build the power of tenants and renters across the city, and really to give the progressive politicians in office at school board, park board, and especially at City Hall, the power, the authority behind them from the citizens, mobilized citizenry to make the changes. So City Hall hearings are going to be a hell of a lot of fun once we have Jean Swanson in office, are they not? We're here today, obviously, as a bit of a provocation in this, and actually just to animate the park and make it a little more lively, because there aren't enough residents in this neighborhood, there aren't enough families, there aren't enough low-income people and kids, and my kids are really upset there isn't a playground here. So maybe we could, without taking out any trees, we could add a playground once we add more working families and low-income people to this neighborhood. Okay, we have an amendment to Jean's proposal to use this neighborhood to the wealth that is accumulating in these many of them empty properties and mansions. We want to use that wealth to build modular housing, but at least some of that modular housing should go in this neighborhood, in Shaughnessy. Am I right? Yeah. We'll get the architects and the planners to look at which empty properties or which burned down properties that have been neglected could be brought back into the public sphere for this purpose. Some people have suggested the Crescent itself. We don't like to propose taking any land out of the park system, but we do believe strongly that low-income housing, supportive housing, social housing belongs in every neighborhood in Vancouver. So to the wealthy NIMBYs, this campaign is not your campaign. Okay, and just to wrap up and just to make that, I want to make that appeal to all of you to see this as your campaign. People will phone you asking you to vote. People will phone you asking you to make donations if you possibly can. But I know that all of our callers and all of our existing volunteers will also ask you to get involved, to become part of neighborhood teams in every part of the city, to have house meetings, to invite your neighbors, to meet the candidates, and also to bring the candidates to whatever movements and associations and unions you're already part of, to your co-op meetings, to your annual union meeting, whatever it is. Put the candidates on the spot, see them as means to building the movements and building support for the issues that you care about. So this is your campaign. This campaign is not about getting a few of us into office. This campaign is about transforming the city of Vancouver. Oh yeah, this was my conclusion, I swear, Luis. And then we're going to enjoy the beautiful day in the park, and people will be around to get you signed up to volunteer. There are people who said last year during the by-election, and even before Jean ran in the by-election, Jean Swanson, she's too radical. I mean, great person doing work on important issues, too radical to run for an election. In fact, Jean's kind of radicalism is exactly the practical politics we need today.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Because radical, the word radical just means to go to the roots.
Yeah.
Hector's talking about fixing housing. Hector is not going to go to the root of the problem, which is the accumulation of capital and the housing of money taking priority over the accumulation of justice and the housing of people. So let's go to the root of the problem. Let's get a radical, pragmatic slate of councillors in power, and let's make Vancouver a city where thousands of people are no longer having to move out of town, where thousands of people are no longer having to move out onto the streets, and where thousands of people are moving into affordable, beautiful, comfortable, just housing solutions in every part of the city. So join the fight to get Jean Swanson elected. Many of you here are already part of it, and join us in the fight for the city. We're going to win. Jean's going to be a city councillor by the end of October or November. So we're going to win our right to the city by fighting together with all of you. Thank you very much.